अश्रद्ध अश्रद्धधाना पुरुषा धर्मस्यास्य परन्तप
अश्रद्धदानाः पुरुषा धर्मस्यास्य परन्तप
अप्राप्य मां निवर्तन्ते मृत्युसंसारवर्त्मनि
अप्राप्य मां निवर्तन्ते मृत्युसंसारवर्त्मनि
मया ततमिदं सर्वं जगदव्यक्तमूर्तिना
मया ततमिदं सर्वं जगदव्यक्तमूर्तिना
मत्स्थानि सर्वभूतानि न चाहं तेष्वस्थितः
मत्सानि सर्वभूतानि न चाहं तेष्वस्थितः
न च मत्स्थानि भूतानि पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम्
न च मत्सानि भूतानि पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम्
भूतभृन्न च भूतस्थः ममात्मा भूतभावनः
भूतभृन्न च भूतस्थो ममात्मा भूतभावनः
यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यं वायु सर्वगतो महान्
यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यं वायुः सर्वत्र गोमहान्
तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानीत्युपधारय
तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्यानीत्युपधारय
Okay. So this chapter is considered, termed in English as royal knowledge, royal secret. In Sanskrit, it's referred to as the Raja Vidya Yogaha. So if you go back to what we started with, right, 7th chapter onwards, what did we say? The Bhagavad Gita turns into that, if you see that Mahavakya Tattvam Asi, the Tat part of it. The Tat part of it is what is where we go into the inner essence. And so that particular part started in 7th. And it sort of, you'll see some similarities of 9th chapter with 7th. But it is like this, right? You are slowly, Krishna, Vyasaji takes us into bachelor's degree and slowly gets us into master's degree, like the one that Shantiji is doing, where you go into deeper and deeper aspects of it. So the 7th chapter, one can look at it from the standpoint that it dealt more with, it also talked about practices, upasanas, all that stuff that you have to do. It was more pertaining to saguna. Saguna means what? Form-based upasanas. Things that you do where, you are able to connect with, not subtract the thing as nirguna, which is formless. So a lot of things were talked about. Now, this chapter is going to go more into the nirguna part of it. And the chapters that follow that are all pretty much going into the formless. It's not that the form part is not going to be dealt with, but we are now getting into deeper aspects. So this is considered as the master's degree part of it from the standpoint of understanding that inner essence. And so why is this considered something kingly? Why is it considered royal? See, anything that's meant for the king, right, typically is considered something that's supreme, right? It is not like you're talking to lowest levels. It's something that is meant for somebody who's evolved, somebody who has got a lot of wisdom. So that chapter name by itself tells you that, it is something very royal. And then there is a world called secret. That is also there. What does the secret mean? Why is it a secret? Why are many things in Bhagavad Gita Upanishad referred to as secret? We should also understand that. The first thing, though, that one should catch one's eye is or ears is what we started with, the first stanza, Shri Bhagavan Vacha. One thing, if you notice here, there's no Arjuna Vacha here at all, which means what? Arjuna was silent. So that means he's absorbing the things that have been dealt with in the previous chapters. And once somebody is not asking questions, the teacher knows now that the person is ready to go into the next level. And so that's how he starts Rajavit. Idam tute guhyatamam. Idam, now, right now, this, right? I am going to do this. So whenever somebody says now, what happens? You wake up, your eyes lit up. I have to listen to this. There is something here that's important. And if you see this idam thing, you'll see this in many Upanishads. The first stanza will start with now. Get to the present, become alert, become aware of what I'm going to tell you now. Because this is not something where you can just, on the side, listen and then absorb things. It is not going to be. These first few stanzas in this is a fairly loaded. The more we are in it and the more we, contemplate. And these verses, although Swamiji says in this chapter is all contemplative. Contemplative means something that you just don't listen. You reflect on it. You have to think about it, right? Somewhere you have to also, start doing that mananam part a lot more intensely in starting from these chapters. It's not just one listening and it'll get in. Because we're going into that little subtleties. So he says now, I shall now declare what the greatest knowledge or the greatest secret. That's how he starts. So if you go back to, the two types of knowledge, and we had categorized the last chapter also, we said there's a para prakriti and then there's an apara prakriti. Apara prakriti is what all the formless, para prakriti is the formless and apara prakriti is the form. So we can call it saguna, nirguna. You can look at it either way. Then he talks about, I'm going to tell you the most jnana vijnana sahitam. Jnanam means what? Knowledge. Vijnanam means what? Experiential knowledge or wisdom. So I'm going to tell you that. You can also look at this as jnanam as something that has to deal with all things that are around me, which is the worldly knowledge. And then vijnana sahitam as something that goes deep inside. You can look at it either way. But we can understand this as I need to have some knowledge, right? Which might be, what do you call, not completely experienced, but then I have to also experience it. That's where all these upasanas come into the picture. So all of this he's going to. Now he says, if once I say this, you don't need to need to know anything else. This knowledge by itself. So what Krishna is telling in the first stanza itself is that by knowing what I'm going to tell you now, your sorrows in life will be gone. Moksha se shubhat. Moksha se means what? Moksha, liberation. In this life, not after life. So you know how profound of a statement he's giving. That should at least wake one up and say, okay, he's saying something, I should listen what he's doing. Now he talks about guhyatamam, greatest secret. What does secret mean? So Swamiji, Guruji talks about this word secret has different connotations. Let's just understand it from our own perspective, right? What do we think is a secret? Our own secret. If you see personally, sometimes, some people are not able to, want to keep something that must have happened earlier in their life, which they don't want to tell somebody else, right? It could be something regrettable, something shameful, something ashamed of, right? You keep it a secret because, somewhere, you just don't feel comfortable telling anybody else. That could be one secret. The other type of secret could be something that you can talk about it or cannot be understood only with maturity. Only with maturity somebody can understand. It's like this, right? Supposing somebody has one child, and then there is a new sibling that is born. Naturally, the child, that's a sibling, right, has been with that parent for a long time, with the mother for a long time. Suddenly, you see somebody out of the dawn coming into the household, right, crying, doing everything. So the attention has gone to that. So suddenly, what will the child ask? Where did this child come from? Isn't it? No, the mother or the father, right? No, will just casually say it's come from the angel, it has come from God. And so your child takes it as gospel and goes on with it. Similarly, the Christmas is coming in a month or so from now. So when Santa Claus comes with the gift, suddenly a gift is there, and the next day morning, you say the gift has come. Who gave it? Santa Claus. The Dadiwala has come. He was putting a drum, he played instruments, and he came. And child takes it. So the truth at that time is taken. But there is a secret to it, right? That secret is known only when that child becomes a youth, right? Grows up and realizes that, what was told earlier, is not quite true, because it needed some maturity, it needed some upbringing, it needed some growth in me, mental growth, for me to be able to realize that. So that truth could not have been understood then. Now it is relevant. So that comes with maturity. The third type of secret is, those of us who are in the corporate world know this, right? Intellectual, IP, we call it intellectual property. Some proprietary product, some proprietary software, some proprietary, even Tirupati Laddu, the making of it is considered intellectual property, right? So like that, there are intellectual secrets that are held by certain corporates, right? So that, it is maintained within that family, it's maintained within that particular organization. And then comes the fourth one, which is a spiritual in nature secret. Those of us who have been initiated, right, across in your life on certain mantras, and they said, this is for you only, meant to be kept within yourself, right? You should not reveal this to anybody. That is called as a bija mantra. In our scriptures, it's referred to as bija mantra. Bija mantra means something, a seed that is planted in you. Only you know about it. It might be a very common thing, right? But as far as you're considered, between you and the guru who initiated you in that particular thing, it is secret. And it is said that, sacredness comes from being secretive. Anything that is bija, right, is considered sacred. It is something only you know, right? And there is a personal connection with that mantra, right? So whenever you say, it's mine, it is, it has been initiated. It has been given to me. So there's a lot of respect, lot of reverence given to this. So it's just like a seed, right, that is planted in a ground and soon manifests after some time into a plant, into a tree, which itself is a secret, how that seed manifests itself into a tree. Similarly, a seed that is installed in you by the guru, right, through the bija mantra initiation, right, manifests itself where you blossom, you grow, uplift yourself spiritually. So in this particular secret that he's talking about, royal knowledge, we are talking about, two things. One is that being mature. Only when you're mature, you're ready to receive this knowledge. Second thing, it's also got a spiritual connotation because you're going to uplift yourself spiritually by doing this. So, therefore, who is this not meant for? He says here in this particular one, So he says, he's now here say, first line, if he says, idam tute guhyatamam. For somebody who does not have a small mind. Who's a small-minded person who always grips, who always kind of a complaint mentality, doesn't look at the big picture, always look at small things. This problem here, this is not right, that is not right, I didn't get my thing, I go somewhere, food is not right. Small things, that petty things that you keep complaining about has got that mentality. So, so here, why is Krishna able to tell this now? Why is it that this whole knowledge comes only in the 8th chapter? Because he has to give all these preludes before that, right? To get Arjuna prepared to come to the stage. If the same thing had been taught somewhere in the 2nd chapter, it would have just gone on top of the head, and they say this all doesn't make any sense, right? So for us also, right, having gone through these 8 chapters here, now going to the 9th, when it goes into this, you're mentally prepared. You may not have absorbed everything in the previous chapters, but you've gone through enough, inner purification or inner awareness of certain things that you're now ready to do it. So some level of mental equilibrium is needed, mental quality is required, right? Being intellectually humble to be able to receive to this. If you are caught up on, I know this, I don't need to do this looks like the same thing, you will not receive anything. So that's what he says. And this knowledge is going to even purify you even further. And how this is going to happen? Through knowledge, through yoga, Raja Vidya Yoga. All of these yoga means we have to pertain it to that particular chapter. So here yoga is going to be a set of practices that Krishna will get into later on in this chapter in terms of, building on top of already practice that you have done earlier or learned earlier. So Jnana Vijnana Yoga, that's what we are talking about right here. So, and ultimately, why should we do all of this then? Right? We remember we learned in the last chapter, mukti. Remember, we learned about how you can achieve this mukti after death, krama mukti, different lokas we go to depending on, where we are with our karmas, etc. But then we also talked about some mukti that we can, be in the life itself, right, while living, which is called as Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukti means liberated as you're living. You look like a normal person, but you are so much, your awareness level, you're spiritually grown up, you're mature, right? You're able to handle the life situations in an extremely mature manner. In a sense, you're liberated. You're not perturbed, very, very centered. So now we go to the second stanza. Second stanza also builds on what he said in the first one. This, he says, is Raja Vidya, Raja Vidya. Again, it mentions it 2-3 times. Royal science, royal secret. And this purifies. And he says that, this is also according to Dharma. Dharma here means what? Dharma, remember, if you look at it purely from basics of Dharma, it is a set of laws. Here we are talking about the law of the inner being, the law of Supreme. Last line, if you see, Dharmyam susukam kattum avyayam. Susukam means what? Very easy. Again, he's giving us a lot of motivation, right? Easy to perform and kartum avyayam. That means once you do it, there's no going back. It is not something that, you'll go back to the, your earlier world that you might have been in several years back. So it's easy to do. That means what I'm going to tell you certain things that which we perform. It is imperishable. Imperishable means here we have to understand that imperishable is something that will not go away from you. It will be implanted in you. Right. So here we have to understand that, we are now getting into avyayam is what? Imperishable knowledge. So here, all of these 2 stanzas is to get the attention of the seeker. Right. So just like, you go to any show, it's always said that, first 10, 2-3 minutes or whatever you hear, let's say to go to any spiritual talk, right, should set the tone for somebody's attention to be there for the rest of the time, right? So we go to the 3rd stanza. here onwards, that actual knowledge starts. Hmm. So very, very potent knowledge. Some of it we may have heard, but it is put in a very beautiful way. Ashraddha dhana. So here we have to understand he's giving in some sense the qualification that is needed to get to this. Ashraddha dhana. He's saying here, without faith, you cannot, seek this knowledge. In this dharma, faith in what? Ashraddha dhana purusha dharmasyasya param tapa. Without faith in this dharma, without faith in this dharma here means what? Dharma of or the law of the Supreme Being, which we've been talking about even in the previous stanzas. So here the word faith or Shraddha we have talked about at length, right? Many a times we talked about in the last chapter also. So here when we have to understand, there's a lot of things faith about yourself. Here we are talking about faith in the unknown. See, faith in the known things is given. You have to have that, right? That requires, even for samsaric life, we need to have faith in myself, faith in the people around me, faith in the banking system, faith in the company, blah, 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 all of that. But here, when we are talking about spiritual knowledge, we're going into an unknown territory, right? So therefore, when I'm listening to something which seems like a concept, like an abstract thing, I should have that faith, right? And Krishna is saying that, I'm going to tell you something, it is given you one ammunition. But here, the second thing Krishna wants to tell us is that make sure that, it is no longer a belief system. I believe something today, I take that belief out tomorrow. Faith is deeply embedded. And faith and devotion, as we talked about in the previous chapter, come together. The more you're devoted, the more you do certain practices, it all builds one on top of the other. So here, Vedic teaching, you need to have that faith. And why do we need to have the faith? Without it, you cannot propel into the unknown. Faith is, gives you that little bit of a spark, right? When you listen, you want to listen more. So here there's a condition that he's starting with the third stanza. The condition is that, have the utmost shraddha or faith in the knowledge that you're going to now listen to. Okay. Now, what is he saying in this one? Dharmasyasya param tapa. If you don't do this shraddha, you return to the path of rebirth. Nrityu samsara vatmani. Why is he saying this? So without faith, without faith or without attaining me, meaning what? Once you get this knowledge, I've told you, I will take you to the ultimate. If you don't do that, right, you are going into this. Why is it? Because what does all this purification do? Somewhere it is, getting rid of all the, impressions and things like that we carry, isn't it? So here maybe we should dwell a little bit into what we are made up of, right? That we have talked about this earlier also. That's just to revise things. What are we made up of? We are made up of, one is the physical body, right? We call it as the Stula Sharira, physical body. The physical body is all about accumulation, growing, etc., etc. Now, surrounding this is the Sukshma Sharira, right? Sukshma Sharira, Guruji, and all the saints say it is about 12 inches surrounding your body. We call it as aura, as we refer to the aura. Aura is bigger for people who are realized. So as we grow more and more, that aura space also widens. So the Sukshma Sharira is where all the impressions, the mind, the emotions, everything is there. All right? And then even surrounding that even further is the Karana Sharira, or the causal body. Causal body is one level even higher. That is where, so if you see the Sukshma Sharira, it's all about, Sukshma Sharira is the one that is born, that perishes back into the earth. Sthula Sharira, so the subtle body is the one that gets carried from one along with the impressions in with the causal body from one birth to the next to the next to the next. Right. And every time we meditate or every time we do these upasanas, pranayama, all those practices, what is happening? That subtle body that is getting cleansed, is getting purified. What does the purification mean? All the residual, impressions that we keep carrying, about this, that didn't happen, this didn't happen, about this person, about this situation, right? Level of centeredness comes in, level of what you call contentment comes in, level of, where you are able to come out of situations very easily because all those vasanas, all those impressions are slowly getting diminished, reduced. So if once who keep it, right, are not able to come out of it, those get carried from one birth to the other. So that's what Krishna is referring to here, is that subtle body is still holding on to a lot of things, and once you hold it, you will go through this continuous process of death, rebirth, death, rebirth. So here is making sure that we understand that we want to. So how do we understand the subtle body, right? This is something you would all be able to resonate with. If you look at it, right, let's say you're sitting somewhere, and somebody doesn't even touch you, just come just close to you, just on your shoulders, not even breathing, not breathing on your shoulder, just comes very close to you, you will know somebody is there. So something in you makes you aware of the fact that somebody is behind me. How does that happen? That tells you that there is another existence of mine which is outside my physical body, which surrounds me, which is making me aware who I am, of the presence of something, isn't it? So that itself tells you that there is a subtle body existing around me that is making me aware of a person around me. So ultimately, what is it that we are trying to do is that, these practices Krishna is telling is allowing you to cleanse that impressions that are there in a subtle body. You become more emotionally, your EQ goes up, EQ quotient goes up, you're getting more and more evolved. And all of these practices are ultimately meant for that. So that's what he's saying in this third stanza, right? We go to the fourth stanza now. So here he starts with his first teaching. Maya tatam idam sarvam. This whole world is pervaded by me. In what form? In an unmanifested form. Right? So this word manifest, unmanifest should resonate with us because we have just learned it in the last chapter, isn't it? Remember, we talked about, when we are born, we were, all these unmanifested form is what, when we are going through the transition stage between one birth to the other. And then we come into a physical existence where somebody can see. And then again, we leave this body, go back into an unmanifested form, again come back. So that, that is one thing. We also talked about even when we go from waking state into a deep sleep state, coming back to a waking state, we go into an unmanifested form during the night where we are totally clueless, about our body, and then come back in as though everything was normal, right? So that whole cycle. So if you look at existence, the table I'm sitting in, the chair I'm sitting in, the table around me, everything has got the same divine power. It's pervaded by me. So here pervaded here means everything, whether it is living, non-living, everything, the space around me, the air around me, the living things, non-living things, everything is pervaded by me. And then he's going to get into, we'll go into the second line, which is very, very potent and loaded. in a little bit. So here we have to understand, right, what is pervaded by me. So this classic example is always, to take. So when we look at pervaded, what is that we have to understand? From our standpoint, it's a life force. The life force that is, that made, the little set of number of cells in the womb become a physical being, and then allow the physical being to grow from infancy to, to youth, to growing, decay. Again, even the decay part is part of the life force. It's making it all. What is it that's making it happen? It is that entity that he's referring to here as myself. So, some years back I was in a satsang in the ashram. Guruji was mentioning one thing very beautiful, and he said that we talk about matter, right? He says everything is pervaded by me, right? So that is one way to understand it. So there was a scientist that came from abroad, and he made one categorical statement. He said, I've been doing research for the last 45 years on what? On matter. He did research for 45 years on matter, only to find out that matter does not exist. This is there in a paper. I'm not talking something out of the blue. Matter does not exist. So what is he saying there? He's not talking at a different level. He's a physicist, remember? So if you look at it from a quantum physics perspective, not the biological or whatever other sciences, at quantum level, the table I'm, where my laptop is sitting or the chair I'm sitting in, it's all made up of waves, vibrations. My body is just vibrations, waves. So he came to that realization. I'm talking about a physicist from a science perspective. The matter is simply a wave function. So there might be different wave functions for different bodies, right? A human body might have a different wave function. A non-living thing may have, but at the end of the day, everything is a wave function. So what appears to us as different existential things around us is simply a wave function, which is what this Upanishad, this teaching is telling us. When Krishna is saying everything is pervaded by me, right? He's saying that everything that exists is only me. And you can look at that as a wave function also if you want to, conceptualize this particular thing. So what is making this life force, for us to manifest as itself as growth, as decay, as accumulation? What is making the body do whatever it's doing now? It's all that life force that he's saying, pervaded by me completely. So whatever you see in the manifest world, I am there as an unmanifested form. That's what we have to understand now. We go deeper. So avyaktam means manifest. Avyaktam. Jagadavyaktamurtina, right? That unmanifested form, which is not perceivable, which is not comprehensible by the normal mind, intellect. That is what I am. This is everything. So if you just look at it, right, even from that, so normally we would just look at, Guruji says very, very beautifully that, we think the mind is inside the body. He always says mind is outside the body. The mind is around you. Right? Everything happens around. If I go one more level and deeper, what you would see the people, realize people say is that before a particular thing, a particular emotion you feel, or before even a particular ailment has to come to your physical body, it is already present in the sharira outside you. So the so-called COVID that we all experienced, that is the reason we did all those practices, pranayamas, meditation, etc. Why? Because those would cleanse the things that are around you before it comes and hits you. See the beauty of it, right? Before something, if I'm aware of the fact that, there's something that's going to hit me tomorrow or the day after, I can prevent it by some practices. That's what I'm doing by all these, pranayamas, meditation, sudarshan kriya, etc. What is it doing? It is doing something. It is like that way it's considered as, why do we call it as a shield, all of these tools? Shield means what? Something that's outside, right? That is making sure that nothing comes to me. So think of the shield as that sharira that's around us. And that shield, right, through these practices is making sure it doesn't come and hit me. So that, so you understand, right? So these practices are not just for some moksha, etc. Just look at it even for your well-being for every day. We need to do these things, right? I can at least minimize, if not completely avoid, the things that are supposed to. Certain things may have to still hit you because there are certain experiences you and I have to go through. But at least it will diminish them. That's why it's called as a shield. So, so who's making those things happen? It's all him. So, so if you look at it from all angles, right? He's the one that is making me grow. He's the one that is making me evolve. He's the one that is also, blessing me that as I do these practices, etc., that I can, be more balanced, be able to handle the situation. But everything is happening only because of him. So so we have to understand this stanza from the concept or from the understanding of the subtle body, the causal body, and the physical body. Right? If we understand this, then all of this will resonate very well. So what is he saying? He says that things come from everything that you see in existence comes from an unmanifested form, comes into a manifested form, and then goes back into a unmanifested. If you go back to the last chapter, remember Brahma Loka, we said, every so many millions of years, everything gets unmanifested and then gets manifested in the daytime. Goes unmanifested in the night. We recall those stanzas, somewhere around the 20th stanza of last chapter, all of this comes. And you see this every day, right? You just look at, all of us some of us who spend time in the kitchen of a house, or even forget the kitchen, right? We go through seasons. Rainfall comes suddenly out of nowhere, you see these moths coming. You don't have any clue from where they come. They come, they exist for a few hours, and they disappear somewhere totally. You keep a bottle airtight with some dal or something there, and you've not opened it in a long time. Go and see it, you'll see worms in there. Where did they come from? How did they manifest there? All of this is a secret. Mosquitoes, suddenly, where do they come from? Flies, where do they come from? They come and they go. So he is just, that one feeling of wonder, the feeling of awe about this nature that we see every day. We just sort of take it for granted. A moth will come, mosquitoes will come during rainy season. But where do they come from suddenly? And where do they disappear? So it is for us, we have to look at this as what the Ishvara does here. It's similar to what the sun does every day to us every morning. At dawn, what happens? At dawn, everything somehow, illumines, right? When there is a light, it just propels so many things. Birds wake up and then they go around. You'll see the sounds. Animals start moving around. All of us, we wake up and there is a plants go through a photosynthesis process. So the sun, right, just triggers so many things, right? So the life on earth just like the Ishvara makes life and each one of us make happen while the time it is there, similarly, during the daytime, the life and entire nature that's surrounding us, that we see every day. So the primary cause for what is existing on this earth that we live in is only because of the sun. Yes, you can also say there is something that happened in the night, but predominantly what happens is during the day, right? So these are certain realizations that he wants us to know. So everything is pervaded. Maya tatamidam sarvam javagida vyakta murtina matstani sarva bhutani na chaham teshva vastitaha. Now this is a fairly loaded line. He says, all beings exist in me, but I do not dwell in them. Wow, very simple. If you just see it, hear it once, as a, you'll just see this doesn't make any sense. He says, everybody exists in me, but I don't exist in him. How to understand this? I think it's always good to take examples in all of this, right? Let's just take a wave, an ocean. You go to the seashore in any beach, you see the ocean, right? What do you see in the ocean as you sit on the seashore? You see, especially on a windy day, lots of waves. There's a wave that comes up, there's a wave that comes down. Some waves are smaller, some waves are bigger. Where is the wave resting in? It's resting in the ocean. So the wave is simply a set of disturbances that happen in the ocean that leads for it to pop up for some period of time and then comes down. Right? So where does the wave exist? Where does the wave exist? It exists in the ocean. So all beings exist in me. So all of us, when we come into a physical body, we are like that little wave. We go up, exist for some time, and go back again. And during those disturbances, we go through sets of emotions, this, that, etc. Now let's ask ourselves, right? When the wave, and this example, you can take it for many other things. The wave, the ocean wave thing is always something that's easier for us to relate to understand. That's the reason I bring it up. So when you look at this thing, when the wave goes up, right? What is happening to the ocean? Is that affected at all? Absolutely no. Depending on how big the wave is there anything that happens to the ocean? Nothing at all. So the wave, so even though the waves are pervaded by the ocean, that's, it's allowing it to do, the ocean doesn't get affected by how big of a wave one goes up, when does it come down, how long it is, where it is, etc. Right? It simply is not affected by the turbulences. Similarly, you and I go through disturbances in our day-to-day life, right? Sadness one day, happiness one day, this desire, that desire, etc. All of that is like the wave. Some desires go up, it comes down. Some emotions go up, some emotion comes down after some time. But the life force that makes these emotions come, the life force that makes me go through these disturbances, without which it cannot happen, is not perturbed one bit by any of this. That is what he's saying. I do not dwell in them. So without me, nothing can happen. And yet I am not a recipient of any one of them. It's something that needs reflection. It's not something that one can just simply absorb. You just have to look at it, right, as simply as an enabler function. It enables you, but I am not caught up in all the things that you do, you know, what you acquire, what you get rid of, etc., etc. It's just like that wave function in the ocean. The waves are simply like us. Just imagine ourselves to be like that wave, or for that matter, any living thing. Goes up, comes down, or look at it as emotions or experiences or situations that we experience, whatever. It's all that same thing. I'm going to stop here because it's a fairly loaded stanza, and the fifth stanza even will be a bit more confusing after you hear this. Um, maybe it's good to just go through some thought process on this. Who would like to?
Sir, I'll go first.